White-on-white crime is out of control. We all know it, but this is an evil that dare not speak its own name. And the so-called authorities act as enablers for this epidemic of intra-racial crime. White people cannot even live beside one another without multiple murders being the result. And since white people, white males in particular, are immune from U.S. law, the situation has gotten worse, not better. As we begin this series on white crime, we are going to show you the crimes, the murders, but also how it is standard operating procedure in U.S. law enforcement to not charge white males with the felonies they commit. Instead, the practice in the U.S. is to charge white males with the lowest offense possible and then reduce the charge or charges to a misdemeanor. You will see that happen again and again and again. This video series is meant to not only finally raise awareness of the color-coded legal system in the U.S., but to also make sure you fully understand that the so-called crime stats that these white supremacists are always cutting and pasting are a total fraud. Here's a case study: the murders of Patrick Shunn and his wife Monique Patenaude. They were a young white couple living in Washington State who one day mysteriously went missing in April of this year. On April 12th, they were reported missing by their neighbors, and a statewide search commenced. April 14th, two vehicles belonging to Shunn and Patenaude were found in a remote wooded area 15 miles from their home. The cars had been covered with tree branches in an obvious attempt to obscure them. But although the cars were found, neither Shunn nor Patenaude were anywhere around. The seats of both the cars were covered in blood, making it clear that both the missing parties were the victims of foul play. The police then began to look at the missing couple's neighbors, John Reed and his brother Tony, who were now also mysteriously absent from home. It turned out Shunn and Patenaude had been involved in an ongoing legal dispute over property with the elder of the Reed brothers, John Reed, with death threats having been made. Shunn tried to get a restraining order against John Reed, but the request was denied after a court commission decided a physical encounter between them had been unintentional. Now, if this sounds like the same cover-up that happened with the murder of Christina Franklin, which I covered on my other channel, then you're right on the money. When white males become violently aggressive, even other white people are not safe, because white supremacy means immunity from the law based on skin color. And white males know this, which is why their violence is so unrestrained. The Reed brothers were believed to be on their way to the Mexico border. May 16th, Tony Reed was intercepted at the Mexican border and arrested, but his brother John is still at large, and as of June 2016, he has yet to be caught. On May 24th, Shunn and Patenaude's bodies were finally recovered, buried in a shallow grave in the woods. As Tony Reed was being bound over for trial, the prosecution announced the charges: 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 for each of his victims, unlawful possession of a firearm, violation of a no-contact order, and driving with a suspended license. 2 cars with blood all over both the seats, surveillance video showing the Reed brothers disposing of the vehicles. The Reed brothers' parents were also arrested for rendering criminal assistance to John Reed. The parents, rather than call the police or encourage their murdering son to turn himself in, instead gave him money. The mother, 77-year-old Fay Reed, gave John her red Volkswagen so he could flee the state. And they even went so far as to transfer the title of John's pickup truck that he used in the murders. Now we can see where the Reed brothers got their disdain for the law. It runs in the family. While the international manhunt is still ongoing for John Reed, his brother Tony has been bound over for trial. Now, here's where white skin legal immunity comes into play. Because with evidence this damning, you must be thinking it's a slam-dunk case, right? The evidence could not possibly be clearer. No way the white guy's gonna slither his way out of the noose on this one, right? Except he doesn't have to. You see, they're white, so the penal code doesn't apply to them. The criminal code was meant to control and punish black people. That's a core tenet of white skin privilege, a core tenet of white supremacy. Because just a couple of days ago, only a few weeks after the bodies of the deceased were found, the prosecution announced that they were dropping all previous charges against Tony Reed. Their basis for it is to say that they no longer believe that Tony Reed was present at the time of the murders of Shun and Patnode. Tony Reed's 2 first-degree murder charges were now reduced to first-degree rendering of criminal assistance. And in case you're wondering, in the state of Washington, that's what's called a gross misdemeanor. And in Washington state, a gross misdemeanor only carries a maximum of a year in jail or a $5,000 fine. 2 people murdered, property destroyed, 2 families torn apart. All this guy's looking at is 12 months max. But we all know that he won't do a year. He's white, and his attorneys will get the sentence knocked down to time served. This guy took part in the murders of 2 innocent people, disposed of their bodies, stole vehicles, and he's not even getting sentenced with a felony. As I've told you time and again, in the U.S., the justice system is color-coded. White people commit felonies all day long, and when they get to court, the DA will always reduce the charges to misdemeanors, no matter how serious the crimes are. This isn't a few isolated cases. This is standard operating procedure when white males commit crimes. This is the white privilege that they raped, committed genocide, and devastated the planet to acquire. A white man literally can do anything and get away with it. When they say freedom, this is what they mean. In the meanwhile, black people are merely accused of wrongdoing, and even if it's jaywalking, the DA will automatically upgrade the charges to a hard felony anyway. This guy was an accomplice in murder. He helped his brother dispose of the bodies of people that they'd killed. He then got rid of their vehicles and tried to flee the country. But all he's going to get is a misdemeanor. So when you look up his criminal record in the future, there will be no mention of stealing the cars or disposing of the bodies. Next time you see the so-called FBI crime stats that the white supremacist chumps like to kick around, you just remember the white murder rate would be far higher than it is if the DAs didn't automatically throw out all murder charges against them. You see, for white males, there's no such thing as a slam dunk case, because whether they go to prison or not isn't based on the crime they're charged with or the evidence against them. Their skin color is their get out of jail free card, and it was certainly working this time. As blatantly wrong as this case was, there's nothing unusual about it. People are always making a big deal about Brock Turner, but the truth is white males are always having their felonies thrown out. That's how the system works under white supremacy. The parents who raised these 2 psychopaths won't do any time either. The excuse for them is going to be that they're elderly, and anyway, they weren't present at the time of the murders either. You can expect the DA to be using that cop-out a lot in this case. And if they ever do locate John Reed down in Mexico, sure, they'll bring him back to the U.S., but whatever charges he gets won't amount to much. He'll give them the typical white male lie about being scared for his life, and the DA will gladly accept it, because where white males in America are concerned, there is no system of law. It's a system of white supremacist principles. The frequent murders of white people by other white people is simply the cost of their freedom, and they'll gladly pay it. We'll be detailing many more of these case studies in white-on-white crime, and you'll see that most, if not all of them, has the same legal result. But for now, I want you to let this one sink in, because at no point did the white media or the white community ever utter the words white-on-white crime, even though that's exactly what this is. They have an internal embargo against that term, as if denying they have a white-on-white crime problem will make it go away. So, since they're not willing to speak the name of this self-inflicted genocide, we're going to do it for them.